"You dropped something." The words cut through the noise of the banquet hall like a blade through silk. Isla froze, her hand instinctively moving to her throat where the leather cord had snapped. She had felt it break, felt the weight of the coin slip away, but in a room filled with hundreds of guests, servants rushing between tables, musicians playing in the corner, she had hoped no one would notice. She had been wrong. The Alpha King himself stood 3 feet away, his massive frame blocking out the light from the chandeliers above, his eyes fixed not on her face, but on the small silver disc that had rolled across the marble floor and come to rest at his feet. Isla's heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to disappear into the kitchens, to become invisible again as she had been for 23 years. But she could not move. The entire hall had fallen silent. Lords and ladies from visiting packs turned to stare. The musicians lowered their instruments. Even the other servants had stopped mid-step, frozen like statues, because Alpha King Darian Blackthorn never spoke to servants, never acknowledged them, never looked at them the way he was looking at Isla now, with an expression she could not read, something between shock and recognition, and something else entirely, something that made her skin prickle with awareness. Darian bent slowly, his movements deliberate, and picked up the coin. It looked impossibly small in his large hand, the silver catching the light, revealing the intricate pattern etched into its surface. A full moon surrounded by ancient runes that spiraled outward like frozen flames. Isla watched his jaw tighten, watched the muscle there flex as his fingers closed around the metal. When he looked up at her, his eyes were no longer the cold gray she had glimpsed from across crowded rooms. They were storm-dark, intense, searching her face as if seeing her for the first time. "Where did you get this?" His voice was low, controlled, but there was an undercurrent beneath it that made Isla's knees weak. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her throat had gone completely dry. Around them, whispers began to spread like wildfire through dry grass. She could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes, could sense the curiosity and confusion rippling through the crowd. A servant possessing something that made the Alpha King react this way was unprecedented, dangerous. "I asked you a question." Darian took a step closer, and Isla had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. He towered over her, radiating power that made her wolf, the one she had never been able to shift into, stir restlessly inside her chest for the first time in years. "It was my mother's," Isla managed to whisper. "The only thing I have from her." The Alpha King's expression shifted. Something flickered across his features, too quick for Isla to identify. He turned the coin over in his palm, studying the reverse side, where another symbol was etched, this one showing a wolf and a crescent moon intertwined in an eternal dance. "Your mother." He repeated the words as if testing their weight. "And who was your mother?" Isla swallowed hard. This was the question she could never answer, the emptiness that had haunted her entire life. "I do not know. I was found as a child, abandoned near the border of the Blackthorn territory. The pack took me in as a servant. That coin is all I had with me." She watched Darian's hand tighten around the silver disc. His knuckles went white. When he looked at her again, there was something new in his gaze, something that made her stomach flip and her pulse race in a way that had nothing to do with fear. "Do you know what this is?" His question was barely audible over the resumed whispers around them. Isla shook her head. She had wondered, of course, had traced the strange symbols with her fingertips countless times over the years, but no one had ever been able to tell her their meaning. The older servants had muttered about old magic and warned her to keep it hidden. She had obeyed. Until tonight. Until the worn leather cord had finally given way at the worst possible moment. Darian looked past her then, his gaze sweeping across the banquet hall, across the lords and ladies who watched with undisguised fascination, across his own court members who leaned together in clusters, speculation written across their faces. When he spoke again, his voice carried through. The entire room with the absolute authority of an alpha who had ruled for over a century. This gathering is concluded. Everyone will return to their quarters. Now. There was no room for argument in that tone. No possibility of disobedience. The hall erupted into motion immediately. Chairs scraped against marble. Guests rose, some looking annoyed, others intrigued, all of them casting glances back at Isla as they filed toward the exits. The other servants scattered like leaves in wind, disappearing through the service doors with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, the vast space stood empty except for Isla, the Alpha King, and two figures who remained near the head table. One was Beta Marcus, Darian's second in command, a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and gray threading through his dark hair. The other was Lady Morgana, the king's chief advisor, a stunning woman who appeared to be in her 40s, but was rumored to be much older, her auburn hair swept up in an elegant style, her green eyes sharp as broken glass as they fixed on Isla with unmistakable hostility. "Darian, what is this about?" Lady Morgana's voice was smooth, cultured, but Isla caught the edge beneath it. "You disrupted the entire summit over a servant's trinket?" The Alpha King did not look at his advisor. His attention remained locked on Isla, and she felt pinned in place by the intensity of that stare, like a butterfly trapped under glass. "This is not a trinket, Morgana. This is a Lunaris. Seal." The name meant nothing to Isla, but it clearly meant something to the others. Beta Marcus inhaled sharply. Lady Morgana went absolutely still, her expression smoothing into careful neutrality in a way that somehow seemed more dangerous than open anger. "That is impossible," Morgana said flatly. "The Lunaris line was eradicated 200 years ago. Every last one of them was killed in the uprising. You know this, Darian. You were there." Isla's mind reeled. 200 years ago. The Alpha King was older than she had realized, ancient by werewolf standards, though he looked no more than 40 in human years. And this Lunaris line, whatever it was, had been important enough to eradicate completely. Important enough that holding proof of connection to it made Lady Morgana look at her like she was a threat that needed to be eliminated. "I was there," Darian agreed, his voice going cold in a way that made the temperature in the hall seem to drop 10 degrees. "I was there when they burned the Lunaris palace, when they murdered Queen Callista and her daughters, when they tried to kill Princess Seraphina." He paused, his jaw working. "But Seraphina escaped. We never found her body. We searched for months, but she vanished as if the moon itself had hidden her." He looked down at the coin again, and Isla saw his hand tremble slightly. She would have been carrying this. The Lunaris royal seal, passed from mother to daughter for 1,000 generations. Each one unique, marked with the individual Luna's symbol. Isla's heart was beating so hard now that she felt dizzy. She wanted to tell him he was wrong, that there was some mistake, that she was nobody, nothing, just a servant girl with no family and no future beyond washing dishes and changing linens. But the way he looked at the coin, the way Beta Marcus stared at her with dawning wonder, the way Lady Morgana's perfect composure had cracked just enough to show fury underneath, all of it told her that denying it would be pointless. "Even if Seraphina survived," Morgana said carefully, "that was 2 centuries ago. She would be dead now, and she never had children. The records are clear. She was only 16 when the uprising happened, unmated, unbonded." Darian finally turned to face his advisor, and the look he gave her made even Isla take an involuntary step backward. "The records were written by the victors of that uprising, Morgana. By the ones who wanted the Lunaris bloodline erased from history. Do you really think they would have documented the survival of an heir?" He moved closer to Morgana, still holding the coin. "And Seraphina was a Lunaris Luna. Their gifts did not follow normal rules. Time, age, fertility, all of it worked differently for them. The old texts say they could live for centuries if they chose, could bear children long after normal wolves had passed their fertile years, could hide themselves from any tracking magic ever created. The advisor's lips pressed into a thin line. Old texts written by superstitious fools. The Lunaris were powerful, yes, but they were not gods. They were God-touched. Beta Marcus interjected quietly. Both Darian and Morgana looked at him. The Beta's expression was thoughtful as he studied Isla. The moon goddess herself blessed their line. That is what the legends say. They were her chosen, her voice in the mortal realm. And an Alpha King could only reach his full potential when bonded to a Lunaris Luna. That is why the EI uprising happened. The other packs grew jealous of Blackthorn's power, of the unbreakable strength that came from the King Luna bond. They wanted to destroy it. If you are enjoying this story, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. Isla's head spun with information she could barely process. God touched, moon goddess blessed, chosen line. None of it made sense. She was a servant. She had never even been able to shift into her wolf form. How could she possibly be connected to this legendary bloodline? I think you are all mistaken, she said, her voice coming out smaller than she intended. I am nobody. I cannot even shift. I have tried my entire life, but my wolf never comes. Whatever this coin is, wherever my mother got it, it does not mean I am what you think I am. Darian crossed the space between them in 3 long strides. Before Isla could react, he reached out and took her hand, pressing the coin into her palm. The moment. The silver touched her skin. Something happened. Heat bloomed where metal met flesh, spreading up her arm like wildfire through her veins. Isla gasped, tried to pull away, but Darian held her hand firmly, kept the coin pressed against her palm. The heat intensified, became burning, became unbearable. She cried out, and then something inside her cracked. It felt like a shell breaking, like chains snapping, like a door that had been locked for 23 years suddenly bursting open. Her wolf surged forward with such violence that Isla fell to her knees. Darian released her hand and stepped back, but his eyes never left her face. Isla could feel it now. Feel her wolf as she had never felt it before. Not sleeping or dormant, but awake, aware, furious at having been caged for so long. Power rolled through her body in waves that made her skin glow with a faint silver light. Her eyes, she knew without seeing a mirror, had turned from their normal brown to brilliant liquid gold. The coin in her hand blazed like a star, the ancient runes coming alive, pulsing with the same rhythm as her heartbeat. Impossible, Morgana breathed, and for the first time the advisor sounded genuinely shaken. Her wolf was bound. I can feel it. Someone put a binding on her, suppressed her shift. But the seal is breaking through it like it is nothing. Darian knelt beside Isla, bringing himself to her eye level. When he spoke, his voice was gentle in a way she had never heard from him before. In a way that seemed at odds with his fearsome reputation. Breathe, Isla. Your wolf has been caged your whole life, but she is part of you. Let her rise. Do not fight her. Isla wanted to tell him she was not fighting, that she had no idea what she was doing, but speech seemed beyond her capability at the moment. The power building inside her was immense, terrifying, beautiful. She could feel her bones beginning to shift, could feel the change trying to take her. But something was wrong. The binding Morgana had mentioned, it was still there, still wrapped around her wolf like barbed wire, and every time her wolf tried to break free, the binding tightened, sent shooting pains through her entire body. Someone help her, Marcus said urgently. The binding is too strong. It will kill her if the shift completes while it is still in place. Darian's hand came to rest on Isla's shoulder, and the touch sent a shock through her system that was entirely different from the pain. It was warm, grounding, powerful in a way that made her wolf howl with recognition. Mate. The word echoed through her mind, her wolf's voice clear for the first time in her life. Mate. 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 No, that could not be right. The Alpha King could not be her mate. He was ancient, powerful, a being so far above her station that the very idea was laughable. But her wolf did not care about station or logic. Her wolf knew. And from the way Darian's eyes widened, from the way his hand tightened on her shoulder, from the way his own wolf rose in his gaze, turning his gray eyes to molten silver, he knew too. Darian, Morgana's voice came from somewhere far away. You cannot possibly be considering what I think you are considering. Even if she is Lunaris, even if the bond is real, she is untrained, uncultured, completely unsuitable to be. Get out. The Alpha King's command was absolute. Both of you, leave us, now. Beta Marcus moved immediately toward the exit, but Morgana hesitated. You are making a mistake, she said, her voice tight with something Hila could not identify. Anger, maybe. Or fear. The Lunaris brought nothing but destruction last time. Their power is too much. It corrupts. It consumes. Is that really what you want? Have you forgotten what it cost you before? Darian rose to his full height, and the power that radiated from him made the air itself feel heavy. I said, get out, Morgana. If you question my authority again, you will be removed from the court permanently. Am I clear? For a long moment, the advisor stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then she inclined her head stiffly and swept from the hall, her silk gown whispering against the marble floor. The doors closed behind her with a heavy thud that echoed in the sudden silence. Hila remained on her knees, the coin still burning in her hand, her wolf still pushing against the binding, still crying out for the mate standing above her. Darian turned back to her, and the naked emotion in his eyes made Isla's breath catch. Longing, recognition, fear, hope. All of it warring across his features in a display more honest than anything she had ever seen from the stoic king. I am going to remove the binding, he said quietly. It will hurt, but you need to trust me. Can you do that? Hila did not know this man, did not know if she could trust him. But her wolf trusted him absolutely, and right now, her wolf's instincts seemed far more reliable than her own confused thoughts. She nodded. Darian knelt again, this time moving behind her. His hands came to rest on either side of her spine, just between her shoulder blades. Heat radiated from his palms, a different kind of heat than the coin produced. This was alive, electric, singing through her nervous system and making every cell in her body aware of his proximity. The binding is ancient magic, he murmured, his breath warm against the back of her neck. Blood magic, specifically. Someone wanted to make sure your wolf never woke. That you never discovered what you are. This is going to break that magic. And when it does, everything that has been suppressed is going to come flooding back all at once. You need to hold on, Hila. Hold on to your sense of self, or the shift will consume you completely. She wanted to ask how she was supposed to hold on to a self she had never fully known. But before she could form the words, Darian's power slammed into her. It felt like lightning striking her spine, like fire and ice and electricity all at once. Isla screamed, could not help it. And then she felt the binding shatter. The relief was instantaneous and overwhelming. Her wolf burst free like water breaking through a dam, and suddenly Isla was shifting, bones reforming, muscles restructuring, skin giving way to fur. The transformation was faster than anything she had imagined, painless now that the binding was gone, natural as breathing. When it finished, Isla stood on 4 legs instead of 2. Her senses exploded. With information. She could smell everything, the lingering scent of food from the banquet, the polish on the marble floor, the distinct sense of Marcus and Morgana who had been here moments ago, and above all, the scent of the man still kneeling behind her. Darien smelled like winter storms and ancient forests, and something else. Something that made her wolf want to roll over and submit and claim and protect all at the same time. She turned to look at him and froze. Her wolf was huge. Larger than any normal she-wolf should be. Her fur was pure silver, the color of moonlight on snow, and when she caught sight of her reflection in the polished marble floor, she saw that her eyes glowed with the same golden light as the coin, which now lay discarded where her human hand had dropped it. Darien stared at her with an expression of pure awe. Slowly, carefully, he reached out one hand. Isla's wolf did not shy away. She moved forward, pressed her massive head against his palm, and felt a surge of connection so powerful it nearly knocked her off her feet. The bond, the mate bond. It snapped into place between them like a physical thing, a golden thread that tied her soul to his, that let her feel his emotions as clearly as her own. Wonder, disbelief, joy, and underneath it all, a bone-deep loneliness that had existed for so long it had become part of his foundation. Seraphina's great-great-granddaughter, Darien whispered, his hand trembling against her fur. You are real. After all these years, the moon goddess finally answered my prayers. His prayers? What did that mean? Before Isla could figure out how to shift back, how to ask the 1,000 questions crowding her mind, Darien stood and stepped away from her. She watched him close his eyes, watched his body shimmer, and then he was shifting too. His transformation was different from hers, smooth and practiced, the change of someone who had done this 1,000,000 times. When he stood before her in wolf form, Isla understood why the other packs feared him. Darien's wolf was monstrous in size, easily twice as large as any alpha she had ever seen. His fur was black as midnight, and his eyes burned silver like captured starlight. Power radiated from him in waves that made the air shimmer. But there was something else, too. Something that had not been there before. As Isla watched, light began to emanate from Darien's fur. Silver threads that wove through the black like lightning through storm clouds. He looked down at himself, at the light spreading across his body, and she felt his shock through the bond. This was new. This was different. This was what happened when an Alpha King bonded with a Lunaris Luna. Their powers merged, enhanced each other, created something greater than either could achieve alone. What do you think will happen next? Leave your predictions in the comments below. Darien shifted back to human form abruptly, and Isla followed his lead, feeling the change ripple through her with surprising ease. When she stood before him again on 2 legs, very aware that she was naked as all shifters were after transformation, he was staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. The silver light still played across his skin, fading slowly but not disappearing entirely. I have not felt power like this in 200 years, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Not since Queen Callista was murdered. The bond with a Lunaris Luna does not just connect 2 souls. Isla, it amplifies everything. Strength, speed, healing, magical ability. An unbonded Alpha King is powerful. A bonded one is nearly unstoppable. That is why they killed the Lunaris line. That is why they made sure Seraphina disappeared. He looked up at her then, and the vulnerability in his eyes made Isla's chest ache. And that is why you are in more danger now than you have ever been in your life. The words hit her like cold water. Of course she was in danger. Whatever she had become, whatever power now flowed through her veins, it made her valuable. And valuable things always attracted those who wanted to possess them or destroy them. The lords at the summit, Isla said slowly, understanding dawning. They saw the coin. They heard you identify it. How long before word spreads? Darien's expression hardened. It has already spread. By morning, Every pack in the kingdom will know that a Lunaris heir has been found in my court. By tomorrow night, half of them will be planning how to either claim you for themselves or eliminate you before I can complete the bond. Her stomach dropped. Complete the bond? He moved closer. And despite everything, despite the fear and confusion and overwhelming strangeness of the last hour, Isla felt heat pool low in her belly at his approach. The mate bond hummed between them, urging her toward him, urging her to close the distance and seal their connection in the most primal way possible. The bond exists, Darian explained, his voice dropping lower. But it is not complete. Not until we mate, until we mark each other, until the moon goddess herself recognizes the union. Until then, it can still be broken. You could reject me. You could choose another. He paused, something flickering across his face. You could die, and the bond would snap, leaving me to live on alone as I have for the last 2 centuries. The pain in those words was palpable. Isla found herself reaching for him without conscious thought, her hand coming to rest against his chest. Through the mate bond, she felt everything he felt. The loneliness of centuries lived without a true companion. The hope that had died when the Lunaris line was eradicated. The resignation to an eternal existence of ruling alone, powerful but incomplete. And now, suddenly, impossibly, that hope had been rekindled. I do not know how to be what you need, Isla admitted, her voice barely a whisper. I was a servant this morning. I have no training, no education in politics or court life. I do not even know how to control this power. How can I possibly be your Luna? How can I be what the kingdom needs? Darian's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. You are already what I need, Isla. The moon goddess does not make mistakes. She chose you. She chose us. Everything else can be learned. He leaned down, his forehead coming to rest against hers, and the contact sent sparks of electricity dancing across her skin. But I will not force this on you. The bond is real, but you still have a choice. You can reject it, reject me, and I will protect you until you can leave the kingdom safely. I will not let my need trap you in a life you do not want. The offer was genuine. Isla could feel the truth of it through the bond. Darian would let her go if she asked, even though it would destroy him, even though finding his mate after 2 centuries of solitude only to lose her again would be a cruelty beyond measure. But the bond worked both ways. She could feel what he felt, and he could feel what she felt. And what Isla felt, she realized with startling clarity, was not fear. Not anymore. It was recognition. It was rightness. It was the sensation of a puzzle piece finally clicking into place after a lifetime of not quite fitting anywhere. I do not want to reject you, she said softly. I do not fully understand this, and I am terrified, but I do not want to run. Darian pulled back just enough to look into her eyes, searching her face as if trying to determine whether she meant it. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because his expression softened, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Then we do this together, he said. I will teach you everything you need to know. Marcus will help. We have allies in the court, people who can be trusted. His jaw tightened. But we also have enemies. Morgana's reaction should have made that clear. There are those who will do anything to prevent the Lunaris line from rising again. As if summoned by her name, a knock sounded at the hall doors. Darian growled low in his throat, the sound purely animal despite his human form. Enter, he called, not bothering to hide his irritation. The doors opened to reveal Beta Marcus, who had the good grace to keep his eyes averted from Isla's naked form. He held out 2 robes, which Darian took with a nod of thanks. You need to see this, Marcus said grimly, pulling a folded piece of parchment from his jacket. It was delivered to my quarters 5 minutes ago, Anonymous. Isla slipped into the robe Darian handed her, grateful for the coverage, and watched as the Alpha King unfolded the parchment. His expression went from annoyed to murderous in the space of a heartbeat. "What is it?" she asked, moving closer. Darian handed her the note without a word. The message was brief, written in elegant script that somehow made the words even more chilling. The last: Lunaris died screaming. This one will, too. End the abomination before it destroys us all. Isla's hands shook as she held the parchment. Someone had sent this within minutes of the coin being revealed. Someone who had been at the summit, who had witnessed everything, who knew exactly what she was and wanted her dead. "This is a declaration of war," Marcus said quietly. "Whoever sent this is not going to wait for political maneuvering or careful planning. They are going to act fast." Darian took the note back from Isla, his eyes scanning the words again, as if hoping they might have changed. "Double the guards on Isla's quarters. No, actually, she stays in my wing from now on. Guest suite adjacent to my chambers. Round-the-clock protection." He looked at his beta. "I want a list of everyone who was in that hall tonight. Everyone. Guests, servants, musicians, guards. Someone in that room either sent this or knows who did." Marcus nodded and turned to leave, but Isla stopped him with a question. "You said the last Lunaris died screaming. Do you know what happened to them? The real story, not the official records?" The beta glanced at Darian, who gave a subtle nod of permission. Marcus sighed heavily. The uprising was supposed to be about redistributing power, about breaking the monopoly that Blackthorn Pack held due to their bond with the Lunaris Lunas. But the truth is uglier than that. Some of the lords were not content with just ending the partnership. They wanted to make sure no Lunaris ever rose again. So they made an example of Queen Callista and her daughters. They burned them in silver cages during the full moon, when Lunaris power is at its peak, as a way of mocking the moon goddess herself. Isla felt bile rise in her throat. And Darian was there? She looked at the Alpha King, saw the muscle in his jaw ticking. "I was there," Darian confirmed, his voice like gravel. "I was captured during the initial attack, forced to watch. They wanted me to see what happened when an Alpha King tried to hold on to Lunaris power. They wanted to break me." His eyes met hers, and the pain in them was ancient, bottomless. "I was bonded to Princess Callista's youngest daughter, Lyra. We had completed the mating bond only weeks before the uprising, and they made me watch as she burned, knowing I could not break the silver chains holding me, knowing I was helpless to save her." The grief in his voice was so raw that Isla acted on pure instinct. She crossed to him and wrapped her arms around his waist, pressing her face against his chest. Darian went rigid for a moment, as if shocked by the gesture, and then his arms came around her, holding her with a gentleness that contradicted his immense strength. "I am sorry," Isla whispered. "I am so sorry that happened to you." Darian's hand moved to her hair, stroking gently. "I spent 200 years believing I would never feel a bond like that again. The mate bond is supposed to be once in a lifetime. When Lyra died, I thought that was it. I thought I would rule alone for eternity, with only the memory of what I had lost." He pulled back enough to tilt her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. "And then you dropped a Lunaris seal at my feet, and everything I thought I knew about fate and destiny turned upside down." Isla searched his face, seeing the truth there. "You think the moon goddess gave you a second chance?" A small, sad smile tugged at his lips. "I think the moon goddess has a twisted sense of humor. But yes, I think she is giving us both a second chance. You, to claim the heritage that was stolen from your bloodline. Me, to have what was taken from me." He leaned down, his lips nearly brushing hers. "The question is whether we are strong enough to survive those who will try to take it away again." Before Isla could respond, before she could close the distance and kiss him as every fiber of her being urged her to do, the sound of shattering glass exploded from somewhere in the palace. Then screaming. Then the unmistakable roar of wolves in battle. Darian moved with inhuman speed, shifting partially, his eyes going wolf-bright as he scanned the hall. "Marcus!" he barked into the empty air. But somehow the beta heard him, because seconds later the doors burst open and the older man rushed in, already half-shifted himself, claws extended and teeth bared. "We are under attack," Marcus reported tersely. "At least 30 wolves, maybe more. They came over the eastern wall, took out the sentries before anyone could raise the alarm. They are heading for the inner palace, for the royal wing, for Isla. They were coming for her." The realization hit with crystal clarity. Someone had not just threatened her. Someone was acting on that threat right now, tonight, before Darian could complete the bond and make her untouchable. "Get her to the safe room," Darian commanded, already moving toward the doors. "Lock it down. Do not open it for anyone but me. Understand?" But Isla caught his arm, her newly awakened wolf surging forward with territorial fury. "I am not hiding while people die protecting me. I am Lunaris. You said it yourself. I have power. Let me use it." Darian spun on her, his eyes flashing dangerously. "You have no training, no control. If you go out there, you are as likely to hurt our own people as the enemy." Isla lifted her chin, meeting his stare without flinching. Something had shifted inside her when her wolf awoke. Some fundamental understanding of what she was capable of. "Then I will learn fast, because I will not spend my life being protected and coddled. If I am going to be your Luna, if I am going to rule beside you, then I rule now. Not after you have eliminated every threat. Not after you decide I am ready. Now." For a long moment, Darian stared at her, and Isla wondered if she had pushed too hard, too fast. Then, incredibly, he smiled. It was fierce and proud and full of a heat that had nothing to do with battle and everything to do with the mate bond singing between them. "Lyra used to say the same thing," he murmured. "She refused to let me fight alone too. I should have known the moon goddess would not give me a meek, obedient Luna." He grabbed her face with both hands and kissed her hard, a claiming kiss that left her breathless. "Stay close to me. Do exactly as I say in combat. And if I tell you to run, you run. Agreed? If you want to see how this story ends, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on." Isla nodded, not trusting her voice. Darian released her and turned to Marcus. "Battle formation. Protect the inner palace at all costs. If they breach the throne room, fall back to the vault. Send word to the allied packs. We need reinforcements within the hour." Marcus disappeared to carry out the orders, and Darian looked back at Isla. "Have you ever fought before? Even as a human?" She shook her head. Her life as a servant had involved cleaning and cooking, not combat training. Darian cursed under his breath. "Then stay in wolf form. Your instincts will guide you better than any training I could give you in the next 30 seconds. Trust your wolf. She knows what to do." He shifted as he spoke, the transformation rippling through him, and then the massive black wolf stood before her. Isla followed suit, calling on her wolf, and the shift came so easily it shocked her. One moment she was human. The next she stood on 4 legs, her silver fur gleaming in the lamplight. Through the mate bond, she felt Darian's approval, his pride in how naturally the change came to her. Then there was no more time for thought. The doors to the banquet hall exploded inward, and wolves poured through the opening like a flood of fur and fangs and rage. Isla's wolf reacted on pure instinct. She dodged the first attacker, a brown-furred male who lunged for her throat, and felt her jaws close on his shoulder instead. The taste of blood filled her mouth, hot and coppery, and her wolf wanted more. wanted to tear, to rend, to defend what was hers. But before she could finish the kill, Darian was there, his massive form slamming into the brown wolf and sending him flying across the hall. The enemy wolf hit a pillar with a sickening crunch and did not get up. More wolves flooded in, and Isla realized with horror that she recognized some of them. Not personally, but by their pack markers. The silver collar on that one marked him as Silvercrest. The scar. Pattern on that she-wolf was distinctive to Ironclaw. These were not rogue wolves or outcasts. These were warriors from established packs that had attended the summit, that had sworn oaths of peace just hours ago. This was coordinated, planned. An assassination attempt disguised as an attack on the palace. Darian fought like a force of nature, tearing through enemies with terrifying efficiency. But there were too many. For every wolf he took down, 2 more appeared. Isla felt his frustration through the bond, felt his fear not for himself, but for her. And something inside her snapped. Power surged through her body, the same silver light that had appeared earlier now blazing from her fur like moonfire. The attacking wolves closest to her yelped and scrambled backward, their eyes wide with terror. Isla did not understand what was happening, did not know what she was doing, but her wolf did. Ancient knowledge buried in her DNA rose to the surface. Lunaris wolves did not just fight with claws and teeth. They fought with light, with moon-blessed power that could burn those who threatened them. She focused on the sensation, on the light building inside her, and then she released it. The wave of silver energy exploded outward in a circle, catching a dozen attacking wolves in its path. They screamed, actually screamed in voices that sounded almost human, and collapsed to the ground, unconscious or dead. Isla could not tell which. The remaining attackers froze, staring at her with a mixture of awe and terror. In that moment of hesitation, Darian struck. He moved through them like death itself, his enhanced power courtesy of their partial bond, making him faster and stronger than he had been in centuries. Within minutes, the hall was littered with bodies, some breathing, some not. The attack was over. But as Isla shifted back to human form, her legs shaking with exhaustion, she knew this was only the beginning. Someone had just made a very public, very violent statement. The Lunaris heir would not be allowed to live, and they were willing to start a war to ensure it. Darian shifted beside her, his chest heaving, blood spattering his skin though none of it appeared to be his own. He reached for her immediately, hands running over her body, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did any of them touch you?" "I am fine," Isla assured him, though fine was a relative term. She had just killed people. Possibly a lot of people. The weight of that settled on her shoulders like a physical thing. Darian must have felt her distress through the bond, because he pulled her against his chest, holding her tightly. "You did what you had to do to survive. That is all. Do not carry guilt for defending yourself." But it was not guilt exactly that Isla felt. It was the realization of what her life had become in the span of a few hours. This morning, she had been invisible, insignificant, safe in her obscurity. Tonight, she had discovered she was royalty, bonded to the Alpha King, and powerful enough to kill with moonlight. Tomorrow she would wake up as someone completely different from who she had been. The person she thought she was no longer existed. Marcus appeared in the doorway, similarly blood-splattered, flanked by a dozen palace guards. "The attackers in the East Wing are subdued. We captured 12 alive. The rest..." He trailed off, looking at the carnage in the banquet hall. "We will interrogate the prisoners," Darian said. Coldly. "I want to know who ordered this. I want names, pack affiliations, everything." He looked down at Isla, his expression softening slightly. "But first, I am getting my mate to safety." He scooped her up before she could protest, cradling her against his chest, as if she weighed nothing. Isla knew she should object, should insist she could walk, but the truth was, Her legs felt like water, and the exhaustion from using her power was catching up to her fast. She let her head rest against Darian's shoulder as he carried her through the palace corridors. Guards stood at every intersection now, all of them bowing deeply as the Alpha King passed. Some of them stared at Isla with unconcealed curiosity. The servant girl who had become a Luna. The story would spread like wildfire. By dawn, there would be 100 different versions, each more fantastical than the last. Darian brought her to a suite of rooms Isla had only ever seen from the outside while cleaning the hallways. The guest quarters adjacent to the king's personal chambers were reserved for visiting royalty, furnished with luxury she could barely comprehend. He set her down gently on a sofa upholstered in deep blue velvet, then moved to a cabinet and pulled out a decanter of amber liquid. "Drink this," he said, pouring a measure into a crystal glass. "It will help with the shock." Isla took the glass with trembling hands and sipped. The liquor burned going down, but it did help, spreading warmth through her chest and steadying her racing heart. Darian sat beside her, close enough that their thighs touched, and she felt the contact like an electric current. "What I did back there," Isla said quietly. "The light. Is that normal for Lunaris wolves?" Darian considered the question. Normal is a relative term. Lunaris Lunis were all unique, their gifts manifesting differently depending on bloodline and individual temperament. But yes, moonborn light was a common ability. Callista could create barriers of pure light that nothing could penetrate. Her eldest daughter could heal wounds with her touch. Lyra... He paused, pain flickering across his features. Lyra could see the truth in people's hearts. Lies were impossible around her. He looked at Isla with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Your power is defensive, protective. It activates when you or those you care about are threatened. That tells me something about who you are at your core." Isla set down the glass, her hands steadier. "And who is that?" A small smile tugged at Darian's lips. "Someone who fights for others. Someone who would rather stand and burn than hide and survive. Someone exactly like the Luna this kingdom needs." He reached out, tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear. "Someone I could very easily fall in love with, if I let myself." The admission hung in the air between them. Isla's heart hammered. Could or already have? The question was bold, braver than she felt. But she needed to know, needed to understand if what she felt through the bond was real or just the magic talking. Darian's expression shifted, vulnerability replacing the Alpha's usual mask of strength. The mate bond creates connection, but it does not create love. Not real love. That has to grow naturally. Bond or no bond. He cupped her face in his hand. "What I feel for you right now is recognition, gratitude, hope, and a desire so strong it terrifies me. But love," he stroked his thumb across her cheekbone, "love takes time. It takes knowing someone. It takes choosing them again and again. Not because fate says you should, but because you cannot imagine choosing anyone else." Isla leaned into his touch, her own hand coming up to cover his. "Then we have time. We will get to know each other. We will choose each other. And maybe eventually, what we feel will be more than just the bond." She smiled, surprising herself with the playfulness in it. "Assuming we survive whoever is trying to kill me, of course." Darian's laugh was rough, rusty, as if he did not use it often. "I have survived 2 centuries of assassination attempts, political intrigue, and more wars than I care to count. I am not about to let some coward who attacks under cover of darkness take away what the moon goddess finally gave me." He grew serious again. "But they will keep coming, Isla. Tonight was just the first attempt. There will be others. More subtle, more dangerous. Until we complete the bond and you are recognized as Luna. You are vulnerable." Isla knew what he was saying without him having to spell it out. Completing the bond meant more than just magic and politics. It meant intimacy. It meant giving herself to this man completely, body and soul. The thought should have terrified her. She had been a virgin her entire life, had never even been courted properly, let alone bedded. And now she was expected to mate with the Alpha King, a being of immense power and experience, someone who had lived lifetimes while she had barely begun hers. But when she looked at Darian, when she felt the warmth of the bond between them, when she remembered the gentleness in his touch despite his fearsome strength, she did not feel terror. She felt curiosity, anticipation, a deep primal knowing that this was right. "Not tonight," she said softly. "Tonight I am exhausted and covered in blood, and my entire world has turned upside down. But soon, when I am ready, when we both are." Darian nodded, relief and respect clear in his expression. "Whenever you are ready, Isla. I have waited 200 years. I can wait a little longer for you." He stood, pulling her up with him. "For now, you need rest. There are clothes in the wardrobe, all your size. I had them brought while we were dealing with the attack." Isla blinked in surprise. "How did you know my size?" A hint of color touched Darian's cheeks. "I am the Alpha King. I notice things, including the measurements of every person in my palace." He said it matter-of-factly, but Isla caught the implication. He had noticed her before tonight, had paid attention to her even when she was just another invisible servant. The realization warmed something deep in her chest. "Sleep," Darian commanded gently. "I will be right next door if you need anything. The door between our suites locks from your side. You are safe here." But as he turned to leave, Isla caught his hand. "Darian?" He looked back, eyebrows raised in question. "Thank you for protecting me tonight, for giving me a choice, for not treating me like a thing to be possessed." Something fierce and possessive flashed through his eyes. "Make no mistake, Isla. My wolf wants to claim you, mark you, keep you so thoroughly that no one could ever question who you belong to. The instinct to possess you is almost overwhelming." He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "But you are not a thing. You are my equal, my partner, my future Luna, and I will treat you as such. Even when every instinct I have screams at me to lock you away somewhere safe and never let you out of my sight." He released her hand and stepped back, putting distance between them with visible effort. "Good night, Isla. Sleep well." Then he was gone, disappearing through a connecting door that Isla had not noticed before, leaving her alone in a room that was bigger than any space she had ever called her own. She moved to the wardrobe and found it stocked with beautiful gowns, casual clothes, even sleepwear, all in fabrics, finer than anything she had ever touched as a servant. She chose a simple nightgown in soft white cotton and changed quickly, grateful to be out of the borrowed robe. The bed was enormous, piled with pillows and covered in blankets that looked like clouds. Isla climbed in, expecting to lie awake for hours, her mind too full of everything that had happened to possibly rest. But the moment her head hit the pillow, exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. Her last thought before sleep claimed her was of storm-gray eyes turning silver, and the feeling of belonging that came with the mate bond humming gently in her chest. She dreamed of burning, silver cages and screaming women, and a young man with Darian's eyes forced to watch as everything he loved turned to ash. She dreamed of a girl who looked like her, running through a forest with blood on her hands and terror in her heart, clutching a silver coin as if it were the only thing keeping her alive. She dreamed of the moon, huge and bright, speaking in a voice that sounded like starlight and ancient power. The cycle begins again. Daughter of my chosen. You will face the darkness they faced. You will be tested as they were tested. But you do not face it alone. Trust the bond. Trust your wolf. Trust the king who has waited lifetimes for your return. Isla woke with tears on her cheeks, and the absolute certainty that something fundamental had shifted in the world. The moon goddess herself had spoken to her, had claimed her, had set her on a path that would either save the kingdom or destroy it. Dawnlight filtered through the heavy curtains, painting the room in shades of gold and amber. Isla rose, padding barefoot to the window, and pulled the curtains aside. From this high in the palace, she could see the entire capital city spread out below, thousands of homes and shops and temples where people were just beginning their day. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, completely. Unaware that last night their world had changed, that a lunarous Luna walked among them again, that old powers were waking, that war was coming. A knock sounded at the door, soft but insistent. Isla called for whoever it was to enter, expecting a servant with breakfast. Instead, Lady Morgana swept into the room, her green eyes sharp and assessing as they took in Isla's disheveled appearance. "Good morning, Your Grace," Morgana said, the title dripping with barely concealed mockery. "I thought we should have a little chat, just us women, before the king wakes and fills your head with romantic notions about destiny and love." Isla straightened, pulling the Luna power around her like armor, even though she had no idea how to actually use it. "If you have something to say to me, Lady Morgana, say it. I have had a very long night, and my patience for games is limited." The advisor's lips curved in a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Direct. I like that. Very well." She moved closer, her silk gown whispering against the floor. "You should reject the bond and leave the kingdom while you still can. Darian is a good man, but he is cursed. Everyone he bonds with dies horribly. Lyra was not the first, you know. There was another, centuries before, when he was newly made king. She lasted 3 months before rebels captured and tortured her to death. The bond drove Darian half mad with her pain. He slaughtered an entire pack in retaliation, women and children included. Is that really the fate you want? To be used as a weapon against the man you are supposed to love?" Isla felt the truth of the story through the bond she shared with Darian. He was asleep in the next room, his dreams troubled, his mind touching hers even unconsciously. And yes, there was old pain there, old guilt, old rage. But there was also strength, honor, a deep well of compassion that had somehow survived centuries of loss and violence. "You are trying to manipulate me," Isla said calmly. "You are taking truth and twisting it to serve your purpose. Why? What do you gain from me leaving?" Morgana's expression flickered, surprise and respect warring across her features. "Clever girl. Yes, I suppose I am manipulating you. But my reasons are sound. The Lunaris Lunas brought nothing but chaos and destruction to this kingdom. Their power was too great. It unbalanced everything. We have had 200 years of peace since they disappeared. 200 years of stability and growth. Do you really want to upset that? Do you really want to be responsible for the war that your existence will inevitably trigger?" "The war has already started," Isla pointed out. "Last night's attack proved that. Whether I stay or go, blood will be spilled. The difference is whether it is spilled fighting for something or running from it." She moved closer to Morgana, drawing on her newfound Luna authority. "And I am not running. Not from this. Not from Darian. Not from who I am. So if you came here hoping to scare me away, you failed." For a long moment, the two women stared at each other, wills clashing in the space between them. Then Morgana laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her entire face. "Oh, you are going to be trouble. I can already tell." The hostility in her expression eased, replaced by something that might have been approval. "Fine. If you are staying, then you need to be taught how to survive court politics. The attack last night was crude, desperate. The next attempts will be subtle. Poisoned words disguised as advice. Allies who are actually enemies. Lovers planted to seduce you away from Darian. You need to learn how to spot the knives before they find your back." Isla blinked, confused by the sudden shift. "I thought you wanted me gone." Morgana moved to the window, looking out over the city. "I did. I do. But if you are foolish enough to stay despite my warning, then I would rather you survive than become another tragedy in Darian's collection." She glanced back at Isla, something sad and old in her eyes. "I loved him once, you know. A long time ago, before he was king, before the Lunaris bonds began. I thought perhaps we could have something together. But then Callista chose him for her daughter. And that was that. Duty and destiny trumped whatever we might have had." The confession hung in the air, explaining so much about Morgana's hostility. This was not just political concern. This was a woman who had spent centuries watching the man she loved pine for. Others bond with others, lose others, while she remained on the sidelines, useful, but never chosen. "I am sorry," Isla said, and meant it. "That must have been painful." Morgana waved a dismissive hand. "Ancient history. The point is, I know Darian better than anyone. I have seen him at his best and his worst. And I know that if you are going to be his Luna, his true partner, you cannot just be strong. You have to be strategic. You have to be willing to make the hard choices. The choices that will break your heart but save your kingdom." She turned fully to face Isla. "So I am offering to teach you politics, strategy, how to read people and situations. How to be the Luna this kingdom needs. Not just the mate Darian wants. What do you say? It could be a trap. Could be another form of manipulation. But Isla's instincts, her wolf, her newfound Luna sense, all told her that Morgana was being genuine. The woman might not like the situation, might even resent Isla's existence, but she cared about Darian and the kingdom enough to help, despite her own feelings. "I accept," Isla said. "Teach me. Everything you know. I want to be worthy of this position, not just lucky enough to have the right bloodline." Morgana's smile was small, but real. "Good. We start today. Right after you have breakfast with your mate. He is awake now, by the way. I can hear him pacing in his chambers like a caged wolf." She moved toward the door, then paused. "One more thing, Your Grace. Do not complete the bond until you are absolutely certain. Once it is done, there is no going back. You will be tied to Darian and this kingdom for the rest of your very long life. Make sure that is really what you want, before you make a choice you cannot unmake." Then she was gone, leaving Isla alone with her thoughts, and the awareness that Darian was indeed awake next door, his presence a constant pull through the bond. Isla dressed quickly in a simple day gown, dark green with silver embroidery that reminded her of moonlight on forest leaves. When she opened the connecting door between their suites, she found Darian standing by his window, exactly as Morgana had described, tension evident in every line of his body. He turned at the sound of the door, and the relief that flooded his expression made Isla's chest tighten. "I heard voices," he said. "I almost came through, but I did not want to intrude if you had called for servants." His eyes narrowed. It was Morgana, was not it? What did she want? Isla crossed to him, drawn by the bond and her own desire to be close. She offered to teach me. Court politics, strategy, how to survive in this world. I accepted. She studied his face. Did I make a mistake? Darian considered, then shook his head slowly. No, Morgana has her own agenda always, but she is also brilliant and fiercely loyal in her own way. If she is willing to mentor you, it is because she has decided you might actually be good for the kingdom. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture that was already becoming familiar. Just remember that her lessons come from centuries of cynicism. Do not let her make you hard, Isla. The world needs Lunas who feel deeply, who lead with compassion as much as strength. Isla leaned into his touch. I will try, but I suspect I will need both. Compassion and hardness, especially after last night. She looked up at him. Have the interrogations begun? Do we know who ordered the attack? Darian's expression darkened. Beta Marcus worked through the night. Most of the attackers killed themselves before we could question them properly. Silver poison capsules hidden in false teeth. They were prepared to die rather than reveal their masters. He moved to a table where breakfast had been laid out, though Isla had not heard anyone enter with it. But one of them talked before the poison could take full effect. He named Lord Vance of Silvercrest as the primary organizer. 3 other lords were involved, all of them present at last night's summit. Isla felt cold settle into her bones. 4 lords working together. That is not a small conspiracy. How many other packs are involved? Darian poured tea with hands that were perfectly steady despite the fury Isla could feel radiating through the bond. We do not know yet, but this goes deeper than I feared. The fact that they move so quickly, with such coordination, suggests they have been planning this for some time, waiting for a Lunaris heir to appear so they could eliminate the threat before it fully manifested. He handed Isla a cup. They failed last night, which means they will be desperate. Desperate enemies make stupid mistakes, but they also make dangerous ones. Isla sipped the tea, letting the warmth settle her nerves. So what do? We cannot just wait for the next attack. A predatory smile curved Darian's lips. No, we cannot, which is why I have called for a full gathering of the council. Every lord and lady, with a seat, will be required to attend. We will force them to declare their allegiance publicly. Those who stand against us will reveal themselves through their words and actions. He set down his own cup and moved closer to Isla. And in that gathering, I will announce our formal betrothal. We will set a date for the Luna ceremony. We will make it clear that the Lunaris line has returned, and anyone who opposes it opposes their king directly. Isla's pulse quickened. That is a challenge. You are daring them to move openly against you. Yes, Darian agreed. I am tired of shadows and whispers. Better to bring the conflict into the light where we can fight it properly. He cupped her face with both hands. But I need to know you are with me in this, Isla. That you are ready to stand before the entire kingdom and claim your place. Because once we make this public, there is no going back. You will be the Luna in everything but the final bonding ceremony. Every eye will be on you. Every word you speak will be analyzed. Every action judged. Isla thought about the girl she had been yesterday morning. Invisible. Safe. Insignificant. Then she thought about the woman she was becoming. Powerful. Dangerous. Essential. There was no contest. She had tasted what it meant to be Lunaris, to have power singing in her veins, to stand beside an alpha king as an equal. She could never go back to being small and hidden. Would never want to. I am with you, she said firmly. Let them come. Them judge. I am done hiding who I am. Darian's eyes flashed silver, his wolf rising at her words. My fierce Luna, he murmured, and then his mouth was on hers, claiming her with a kiss that set her blood on fire. The mate bond flared between them, stronger now, more insistent, urging them toward completion. Isla felt heat pool low in her belly, felt her body respond to his proximity in ways that were entirely new and completely instinctive. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Darian rested his forehead against hers. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who loves epic romance. Tell me in the comments. Did you see this ending coming? Soon, he promised, his voice rough with desire. Soon we will complete the bond. But first, we survive the council meeting. We cement your position. We make sure that when we finally come together, it is as established partners, not fugitives running from assassins. Isla nodded, not trusting her voice. Her entire body thrummed with need, with the desire to forget politics and danger and just lose herself in the mate bond. But Darian was right. They needed to be smart, strategic. The rest of that day passed in a blur of preparation. Morgana arrived with an entourage of seamstresses, transforming Isla from servant to royalty with gowns that fit like they had been made for her body specifically. Jewelry that caught the light and made her silver hair shimmer, cosmetics that enhanced rather than concealed. You need to look the part, Morgana explained as servants fussed over Isla's appearance. The court expects a Luna to be beautiful, poised, otherworldly. You have the bloodline and the power. Now we give you the presentation. But it was not just about appearance. Morgana drilled Isla on names and faces, teaching her the political landscape of the kingdom. Lord Vance of Silvercrest was ambitious, she learned, had been pushing for reforms that would weaken the Alpha King's central authority for decades. Lady Helena of Moonvale was conservative, traditional, likely to oppose Isla simply because change frightened her. Beta Marcus came from Ironclaw originally, but his loyalty to Darian was absolute, earned through centuries of friendship. By the time evening fell and servants came to escort Isla to the council chambers, she felt like a different person entirely. The gown they had chosen was deep midnight blue, almost black, with silver embroidery that traced patterns of wolves and moons across the bodice. Her hair had been swept up in an elaborate style that left her neck bare, showcasing the elegant line of her throat where Darian would eventually place his claiming mark. She looked like a Luna. Now she just had to act like one. Darian was waiting outside the council chamber doors, dressed in formal black with the blackthorn crest emblazoned across his chest in silver thread. When he saw Isla, everything else in the hallway seemed to fade away. "You are breathtaking," he said, simply offering his arm. "Are you ready?" Isla took his arm, drawing strength from the contact, from the bond humming steadily between them. "As ready as I will ever be. Let us show them what happens when the Lunaris line returns." Together, they entered the council chamber. The room fell silent as every head turned to watch them. Isla kept her chin high, her spine straight, channeling every ounce of Luna authority she possessed. These people would not see her as a servant. They would see her as what she was, their future queen, the mate of their king, the last daughter of a bloodline that had once made kingdoms tremble. And if some of them wanted her dead, well, they would learn that Lunaris wolves did not die easily. Not anymore. Not ever again.